The boy didn't scream. He didn't cry. He threw himself flat in the Montana dirt beneath a stranger's horse and locked both small hands around the man's boot like it was the last rope on a drowning ship. The horse shied. Dust rose. The boy did not let go. "Sir," he whispered, eyes dry as the road. "My baby sister stopped crying an hour ago." 11 men had already ridden past him that morning. 11 men had looked the other way. Jack Holloway was the 12th. Before we go on, if this story touches your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell, and stay with me all the way to the end, because what this boy does next is something I will never forget. And tell me in the comments which city you are listening from today, so I can see just how far this little boy's voice has traveled. Now, let me tell you what happened when the 12th man stopped. Jack Holloway had ridden through too many towns to be surprised by much. He'd seen boys beg for coin, boys beg for bread, boys beg for fathers who weren't coming back. But in all his years of saddle leather and long silences, no child had ever thrown himself under a horse to stop him. "Let go of my boot, son." "No, sir." "Son, I said let go." "I can't, sir. If I let go, you'll ride." Jack stared down at the small fists locked around his left boot. The knuckles were white. The fingernails were broken. The wrists were thin enough that a man could have snapped them between 2 fingers. "What's your name, boy?" "Ethan, sir." "Ethan Carter." "How old are you?" "Ethan Carter." "9, sir." "And how many men have you stopped today?" The boy's mouth moved, but his eyes did not. "Counting you, sir." "Counting me." 12. Jack let a slow breath out through his nose. 12. "Yes, sir." "And the other 11? "Rode on, sir." Without a word. Some said words. What kind of words? The boy's lips pressed flat. "Not the kind a lady would repeat, sir." Jack shifted in the saddle. The sun was climbing. The road was empty in both directions. Somewhere behind him, a meadowlark called once and went still. "Ethan?" "Yes, sir." "You can let go now." "Sir, if I let go?" "I'm not going to ride. I give you my word." The boy's eyes came up for the first time. They were gray and steady, and far too old for a face that small. He studied Jack the way a man studies a pocket watch he is not sure he can trust. "Your word, sir." "My word." The small hands opened. Dust drifted off them. Jack swung down slow boots meeting the road and tied his horse to a split-rail fence that had seen better winters. Then he went down on one knee, right there in the dirt, so his eyes were level with the boy's. "Now, say it again. Slow." Ethan swallowed hard. "My baby sister stopped crying an hour ago, sir." "Your baby sister?" "Yes, sir. Her name is Lily. She's 4 months old." "And before an hour ago, she cried all night, sir. All night and all the way through the morning. Then she just stopped." Jack's jaw moved. He did not speak for a long moment. "Where's your mother, Ethan?" "At the store, sir." "The general store?" "Yes, sir." "Why?" "They made her come." "Who made her come?" "Mr. Dalton, sir, and his men." "And she brought the baby?" "She had to, sir. There wasn't nobody to leave her with." "Where's your father?" The boy's chin did something brave. "In the ground, sir. 6 weeks." Jack laid one gloved hand on the boy's shoulder. It was the smallest shoulder he'd touched in a long time. "All right, Ethan, all right. You're going to walk with me, and you're going to tell me everything you can on the way. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Start at the baby. What did she feel like the last time you held her?" "Cold, sir, but not outside cold. Inside cold." "Her lips, what color?" "Blue around the edges." "Her hands?" "Floppy." Jack closed his eyes for a half-second. "Son, why'd you leave her? Why'd you come out here to the road?" "Because nobody in town would help." "Nobody?" "I asked the doctor. He's in Mr. Dalton's pocket. I asked the preacher. He said he'd pray. I asked the sheriff. He laughed." "Laughed?" "Yes, sir." And so you figured you'd come out here and find a stranger. I figured a stranger ain't bought yet, sir. Jack straightened up. For just a moment, something that might have been a smile crossed the flat line of his mouth. And then it was gone. Walk, boy, fast as you can without running. Yes, sir. They moved together down the road. Jack's long strides, Ethan's quick ones, the horse following at the lead. Ethan, sir, when your papa was alive, what did he do? He farmed, sir, and he wrote things. What kind of things? Words, sir, in a book. A journal. Maybe. Mama called it his worry book. What did he worry about, Mo? The water. Jack slowed a half step. The water. Yes, sir. What about the water? He said it wasn't right no more. Not after the factory come in. What factory? Mr. Dalton, sir, upstream. And the water tasted wrong. Tasted like pennies, sir. Mama stopped using it for coffee back in the spring, but we still had to wash in it. And the cows still drank out of the creek. Cows die. 2, sir, then Papa, then folks started coughing. Mrs. Abernathy's little girl, the Hoyt twins, old man Peterson. And now your sister. The boy did not answer. He did not need to. The town came up around a bend. A street of weathered clapboard and faded paint. A water trough. A hitching post. A sign that read, Dalton Brothers Dry Goods and General Store, in letters fresher than the wood they rested on. Jack took it in without slowing down. Which door? Front, sir. But the men are on the porch. How many men? 3. Armed? All of them. And your mama is inside. Yes, sir, with Lily. Ethan? Sir, when we go up those steps, you don't say a word, not one. You stand behind me and you keep your eyes on the ground. Do you understand? Yes, sir, but if they hurt her before you can, they won't. Sir, you don't know Mr. Dalton. Son, Mr. Dalton don't know me either. They stopped at the foot of the porch steps. 3 men stood on the boards above them. 1 tall, 2 wide, all 3 in the soft leather of men who had never worked a field a day in their lives. The tall one had a toothpick in his mouth. He took his time looking Jack up and down. Help you, stranger? Going inside. Stores closed for private business. Is that right? That's right. Sign on the door says open. Sign's wrong. Jack nodded slow, like a man agreeing with the weather. Well, friend, reckon I'll go correct it for you. He set 1 boot on the bottom step. The toothpick man's hand drifted toward his belt. Mister? I don't think you heard me. I heard you. Then maybe you ought to turn around. Can't. Why not? Got business with the lady inside. You don't know the lady inside. Boy says I do. 3 pairs of eyes went to Ethan for the first time. The boy kept his gaze on the ground just as he'd been told. The toothpick man's lip curled. That boy's been a nuisance all morning. Has he? Been grabbing at gentlemen on the road, telling tales. Tales. Boy's got a loud imagination and a sick-sister stranger. That's all that is. We've got it handled. 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 Jack set his second boot on the step. Friend, he said soft as a Sunday. If you've got it handled, how come the boy walked 3 miles to throw himself under my horse? Silence. The toothpick rolled from one corner of the man's mouth to the other. Mr. Move. I. Move. Jack did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the pistol at his hip. He simply looked at the man the way an undertaker looks at a plot of earth he has already measured. And after a long, long moment, the toothpick man stepped aside. Jack climbed the steps. Ethan climbed behind him. The door swung open under Jack's gloved hand with a sound like a breath being held. Inside, the woman had her back to the door. Gray dress too thin for the weather. Shawl mended too many times. She was holding something in her arms. She was holding it the way a woman holds a thing she is afraid to set down. Across from her, a man in a black frock coat and a silver watch chain tapped one manicured finger against a paper. Sign it, Mrs. Carter. Mr. Dalton, sign it. My husband paid. Sign it, and you keep the house until the 1st of the month. Don't sign it and my men will remove you before sundown. Please, my baby. Your baby. Mrs. Carter is not my concern. Your signature is. Jack cleared his throat. The room turned. Richard Dalton was perhaps 40. He had the kind of face that had never gone hungry and never lost a hand of cards on purpose. His eyes took Jack in the way a banker takes in a man asking for a loan, quick, cool, and already closing the door. Who are you, stranger? The store is closed. Heard that outside. Then you heard right. No, sir. Heard right. Just didn't care. Dalton's finger stopped tapping the paper. You don't want to make an enemy of me, stranger. No, sir. I don't want to make anything much of you at all. I just want to see the baby. The baby is fine. With respect, sir, I'll see for myself. She is her mother's concern. She was her mother's concern when she walked in here. Now she's mine. Sarah Carter turned. She turned slow like a woman moving through water. And when Jack saw her face for the first time, he understood why the boy had run out of tears. She had used them all up for him. She was young, younger than Jack had expected. Pale skin gone paler from hunger. Chestnut hair pinned up in a way that suggested she had stopped caring whether it stayed. A mouth that had forgotten what it was for. But her arms were steady. Her arms were steady around the small, still bundle of cloth and blanket she had not set down in an hour. Ma'am? Her lips parted. Nothing came out. Ma'am, my name is Jack Holloway. Your son Ethan stopped me on the road. Her eyes moved past him, found the boy. Filled. Ethan. Mama. Baby, you were supposed to stay at the house. Mama, I know. Ethan. Mama, he stopped. He stopped Mama. Sarah Carter's knees almost went. Jack moved faster than he had moved in 5 years. He caught her elbow with one gloved hand and held her up without making a show of it. Ma'am, I need you to do one thing for me. One thing. Can you let me see her? She's sleeping. Ma'am? She's just sleeping, sir. Sarah. Her first name cut through whatever she had been about to say. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. Let me see her. She moved the blanket aside. Jack Holloway had ridden through too many towns to be surprised by much. He had seen boys beg. He had seen fathers die. He had seen women bury children and go back to washing shirts in the morning because the shirts still needed washing. But when he saw Lily Carter's small blue mouth and the shallow, uneven rise of her chest, something inside him that had been quiet for 5 long years began to make a noise. Ma'am? She's sleeping, sir. She's not sleeping, Sarah. Please. She's breathing. Barely. But she's breathing. The word breathing broke something in Sarah Carter that the word sleeping had been holding up. She made a sound Jack would remember the rest of his life. He turned. He turned slow. He turned toward Richard Dalton, who had not moved from the counter. Sir? Stranger? Where's the doctor? Dr. Pell is at his home, I imagine. And where is his home? 3 blocks east. But Dr. Pell is not a charity. He is today. I beg your pardon. He is today, sir. He is today and every day until that baby is breathing right. Do you understand me? I don't believe I do. Then let me say it plain. You are going to send one of those men on the porch to fetch the doctor. The doctor is going to come. He is going to look at this child. And if he finds one thing wrong with her that wasn't wrong this morning, I am going to come back and have a conversation with you that you will not enjoy. You are threatening me, stranger. No, sir. I am promising you. There's a difference. A threat gets louder. A promise just gets kept. Dalton's jaw worked. And the paper. Jack looked at the paper. He looked at Sarah. He looked at the paper again. What paper? The paper Mrs. Carter was about to sign. I don't see a paper, sir. I see a scrap. Stranger. Jack reached out with one gloved finger. He dragged the paper across the counter, lifted it slow, and held it up to the low kerosene light. His eyes moved down the page. They moved back up. They stopped on the signature line at the bottom, a line that bore in faded but unmistakable ink the name Thomas Carter. Sarah's late husband. Signed 3 days after his funeral. Jack Holloway folded the paper once. He folded it twice. He tucked it into the inside pocket of his coat. Stranger, that is a legal document. No, sir, that is a forgery. You have no right. I have every right. Dead men don't sign papers, Mr. Dalton, and the ones who try to make them do are the ones who ought to be worried about what happens next. You have no idea who I am. I've got a fair idea, sir, and I've got a better idea of who she is. He did not look at Sarah Carter when he said it. He did not need to. The boy behind him, the boy who had not cried, who had asked 11 men and been ignored, who had thrown himself under the 12th horse because he had run out of ways to be heard. The boy was looking at him, the way a child looks at the first adult in a very long time who has not lied. Jack turned back to Sarah. Ma'am? Yes. We're leaving. Where? Doctor's now. He won't. He will. Sir, you don't understand. Dr. Pell is Sarah. Yes. Take your boy's hand. Hold that baby like you've been holding her. And walk with me to that door. Can you do that? Her eyes filled again. But this time the water did not fall. It just sat there shining like a window somebody had finally wiped clean. Yes, sir. I can do that. Ma'am? Yes. My name is Jack. Jack. Walk. She walked. Ethan walked beside her, one small hand locked in hers, the other hanging at his side the way it had hung since the morning his father stopped breathing. Jack walked behind them, one boot in front of the other, the forged paper folded against his heart, and the weight of a promise he had made out loud for the first time in 5 years settling onto his shoulders like a coat he had forgotten he owned. At the door, he stopped. He turned. Richard Dalton had not moved. Sir? Stranger, you said my name didn't matter? I said no such thing. You said you didn't care who I was. I said the store was closed. Same thing where I come from. And where is that? Jack Holloway tipped his hat. Just once. Just enough. The kind of place, sir, where a man keeps his word, and where a boy's word, even a 9-year-old boy's, gets counted the same as a banker's. He stepped through the door. The 3 men on the porch had not moved either. They watched him come out with a woman on one arm and a child on the other, and a baby somewhere in between. They watched him walk down the steps. They watched him untie his horse. They watched him hand the lead to Ethan, like Ethan was a man grown. Boy. Sir? Walker. Steady. Doctor's house. You know the way. Yes, sir. Don't run. No, sir. And Ethan. Sir. You stopped me. Yes, sir. Don't forget that. Not ever. A boy who can stop a stranger is a boy who can do most anything. The boy's throat moved. Yes, sir. They walked. 3 blocks east, past windows that opened a crack and closed again, past doorways that filled and emptied, past the whole long, quiet hush of a town that had gotten comfortable pretending not to see. And somewhere between the general store and Dr. Pell's front gate, Sarah Carter spoke for the first time without being asked. Mr. Holloway. Jack, ma'am. Jack. Yes. Why did you stop? He did not answer for a long moment. The horse's hooves clopped soft against the dirt road. The baby in her arms drew one small, rattling breath. Ma'am, he said at last, there was a time I didn't stop, and I've been paying for it ever since. She did not ask him what he meant. She just tightened her grip on her son's hand and her daughter's blanket and the strange, steady arm of the stranger who had not ridden past. And she walked. The doctor's gate creaked when Jack pushed it open. The doctor's door opened before he could knock, and the man who stood in the doorway took one look at the gray-faced baby in Sarah Carter's arms, one look at the boy with the broken fingernails, and one long look at the tall, quiet stranger standing between them and whatever lie he had been planning to tell died on his tongue. "Bring her in," Dr. Pell said. Jack did not move. "Sir?" "Yes. Before we cross that threshold, I want you to know one thing." "What's that?" "That boy right there, his name is Ethan Carter. He asked 11 men for help this morning, and 11 men rode on. If you are the 12th, and you are about to be the 12th, I want you to understand, sir, that the whole rest of your life is going to be measured from what you do in the next 5 minutes. The doctor's hand tightened on the doorframe. "I understand." "Do you?" "I do." "Then bring her in." And for the first time since Ethan Carter had thrown himself into the dirt beneath a stranger's horse, for the first time since his baby sister had gone quiet in their mother's arms, a door in that long, hard town swung open for the Carters and did not close again. The door shut behind them with a sound like a verdict. Dr. Pell's hands were already moving before Sarah had stepped fully into the room. He cleared the long pine table with one sweep of his forearm, bottles, a lamp, a half-written ledger, all onto the floor. In a clatter nobody flinched at, and gestured for Sarah to lay Lily down. "Ma'am, on the table, gentle." "She's so cold, doctor." "I know, ma'am. Lay her down." Sarah's arms would not open. "Sarah?" "Jack, I can't if I put her down. What if she—" "She won't. You don't know that." "Sarah, look at me." Sarah looked at him. "She is not going to die on that table. She is not going to die at all. But the doctor cannot help her while she is in your arms. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Lay her down." She laid her down. The baby's small body seemed to weigh nothing at all against the wood. Dr. Pell bent low over her, pressed 2 fingers to the hollow of her throat, then to the inside of her tiny wrist, then to the soft place beneath her jaw. His mouth went tight. He lifted one of her eyelids with a thumb. He leaned down and put his ear almost against her chest and held it there for a full 10 seconds without breathing. When he straightened up, his face had gone the color of ash. "Ma'am." "Yes." "When did she last take milk?" "Last night." "Kept it down?" "Some of it." "And water?" "This morning, a little. She spit most of it back up." "How much has she passed?" "Doctor." "How much, ma'am? I need to know." "Almost nothing. Not since yesterday afternoon." The doctor closed his eyes for a half-second. When he opened them, he was already reaching for a small glass jar on the shelf behind him. "Mrs. Carter, I am going to tell you something, and I'm going to tell you plain because there is not time for pretty words. Your daughter is dying of thirst. Her body is drying out from the inside. If we do not get water into her in the next hour, she will not see sundown." Sarah made a sound that was not quite a word. Ethan, who had not spoken since the porch, took one small step forward. "Doctor?" "Yes, son." "Is it the water that's making her sick?" The doctor stopped with his hand on the jar. "What did you say, boy?" "The water, sir. Is it the water?" "Son, my papa said it was the water." The doctor's hand came down off the shelf. "Your papa said that?" "Yes, sir." "Your papa, Thomas Carter?" "Yes, sir." Dr. Pell looked at Jack. Jack looked at the doctor. Nothing moved in the room for 3 long heartbeats but the shallow rise and fall of the baby's chest. "Mr. Holloway?" "Yes." "Could I have a word with you in the hall?" "You can say whatever you've got to say right here, sir." "Mr. Holloway, I would rather—" "Doctor, there is a woman in this room who just laid her dying baby on your table. There is a boy in this room who asked 11 men for help this morning and got told to shut his mouth. Whatever it is you'd like to say in the hall, you can say it in front of them. Or you can say nothing at all. But you are not going to pull me aside like I'm the only one in this room old enough to hear the truth." The doctor's jaw tightened, and then slowly it let go. "Fair enough. Say it. Thomas Carter came to me 3 days before he died." Sarah's head came up. "He what?" "He came to me, ma'am. He was not a well man. He had been throwing up blood for a week. His hands had gone numb. His gums were black. He never told me. He did not want to worry you, ma'am. He was very clear on that point." "Dr. Pell." "He asked me to test the water." The room went still. And I did. And I found what he thought I would find. Which was, lead ma'am, arsenic, and something else I could not put a name to. The kind of poisons, ma'am, that do not get into a creek by accident. Sarah's hand went to her mouth. Why didn't you? Tell someone I tried, ma'am. I wrote to the Territorial Health Office in Helena. I wrote to the Federal Surveyor. I wrote to 3 newspapers. And Richard Dalton owns the only post office in this county. Jack's voice came low and flat. Say that again, Doctor. He owns the post office, Mr. Holloway, or rather his brother-in-law does. Every letter I mailed in the last 4 months came back marked undeliverable. Every one. And you stopped writing. I stopped writing. And you stopped fighting. I stopped fighting. And then Thomas Carter died. The doctor's eyes closed. Yes. And you wrote his death certificate. Yes. And what did you put down as cause? Natural causes. Ethan made a small noise in his throat. Just one, like a word he had swallowed. Sarah's hand went to the boy's shoulder without her even looking at him. The grip was white-knuckled. The boy did not flinch. Jack did not raise his voice. He almost lowered it. Dr. Pell. Yes. Why are you telling us now? Because, Mr. Holloway, look at me when you say it. The doctor looked at him. Because, Mr. Holloway, I have watched children die in this town for 6 months. I have watched mothers bury their babies and go back to washing in that poisoned creek because there is nowhere else to wash. And this morning, a 9-year-old boy threw himself under a stranger's horse because the rest of us had run out of the courage God gave us. I am telling you now because if I do not, I will not be able to stand in front of my wife at supper tonight and call myself a man. Nobody spoke. The doctor turned back to the baby. Ma'am, I need you to hold her head. Steady. I am going to drip water into her mouth 1 drop at a time, and you are going to tell me the second you see her swallow. Can you do that? Yes. Boy, you come here too. Your sister needs to hear your voice. Sir. Talk to her son. Whatever you want. Just don't stop. Ethan came to the table. He put one small, broken fingernailed hand on the edge of the cloth beside his sister's face, and he leaned down, and for the first time since his father had gone into the ground, his voice wobbled. Lily, it's me. It's Ethan. I brung a man, Lily. He stopped. He stopped for you, so you gotta stop too, Lily. Okay? You gotta stop and wake up and cry real loud the way you was crying last night. You hear me, Lily? You cry, loud as you want. I won't tell you to hush, not ever again, I promise. The doctor's hand was steady. The water went in. 1 drop, 2, 3. For a long, agonizing stretch, nothing. Then the smallest, shallowest movement of a throat the size of a man's thumb. She swallowed. You're sure? She swallowed, doctor. Again. Another drop. Another small movement. Again. Jack Holloway, who had stood 5 paces back, through the hole of it, took off his hat for the first time since he had ridden into town. He held it against his chest with both hands, and he watched a baby swallow water 1 drop at a time, and he did not say a word. Outside somewhere on the porch a board creaked. Jack's head turned an inch. Doctor? Yes. Is your back door bolted? Yes, why? You're sure? Mr. Holloway? What? Somebody's on your porch, sir. Has been for 2 minutes. Hasn't knocked. The doctor went very still. Oh, dear God. Who do you figure? Dalton sends a man, every afternoon, to ask about my patients. He calls it neighborly concern. How long does he usually stay? 5 minutes. Long enough to count who's in the waiting room. And today he has been standing out there the whole time we've been talking. Jack set his hat down on the edge of a chair. Sarah. Yes. Keep feeding the baby. Jack. Keep feeding the baby. Ethan. Stay with your mother. Doctor, where's your pistol? You're a doctor in Montana, sir. Don't tell me you haven't got one. Top drawer, left side of the desk. Loaded. Always. Jack crossed the room without seeming to hurry. He opened the drawer. He took out the pistol. He broke it open, checked the cylinder, snapped it closed. He did not draw the one on his own hip. He just held the doctor's revolver in his left-hand barrel, down thumb, resting easy on the hammer. "Doctor?" "Yes." "Answer the door." "Mr. Holloway, I don't—" "Answer the door, sir. Pleasant as a Sunday. Whoever's out there doesn't know I'm in here. Let's keep it that way for another minute or two." The doctor went pale, then nodded, then straightened his coat and crossed the floor and opened the front door with his best bedside face. "Mr. Briggs, good afternoon." A voice came through the door. Slow. Soft. The kind of voice that always sounds pleasant and never is. "Doctor, heard you had visitors." "A patient, Mr. Briggs." "More than one. The mother and the boy, yes. And a third." Mr. Briggs, tall man, long coat, rode in off the Helena Road. Word is he walked Mrs. Carter out of Mr. Dalton's store like Mr. Dalton wasn't even standing there. Mr. Dalton would very much like a word with him, doctor. "Mr. Briggs, I am in the middle of treating a very ill infant." "Won't take but a minute, doctor. Let me in." "I cannot, Dr. Pell." "Yes, let me in." There was a pause, and then Jack Holloway stepped into the doorway behind the doctor. The doctor's pistol hanging loose at his side, his own still holstered his face, the kind of quiet that was louder than shouting. "Afternoon, friend." The man on the porch, short wide, a scar running from the corner of his mouth up toward his ear, took one step back without meaning to. "You." "Me." "Mr. Dalton." "Sent you." Yes." "To do what?" To ask you to come have a word with him." "A word?" "Yes, sir." "About what?" About the paper you took, sir." "Ah. He says you have a piece of property that belongs to him." "Does he?" "He says if you bring it back by sundown, there won't be any trouble." "And if I don't?" The man swallowed. "Sir, if I don't?" "He said to tell you that Mrs. Carter's husband was not the only man in this town to die of natural causes this year, sir." The doctor made a sound. Jack did not move, not his hand, not his face, not even his eyes. "Friend." "Sir." "You tell Mr. Dalton something for me." "Yes, sir." "You tell him I heard his message real clear. You tell him I appreciate the warning, and then you tell him this. A man who sends a threat through another man's mouth is a man who's already decided he's going to lose. Do you have that, friend?" Say it back. A man who sends a threat through another man's mouth is a man who's already decided he's going to lose. "Good. Now walk." "Sir." "Walk, friend. Off this porch, down this road, back to your Mr. Dalton, and tell him I'll be along when I'm done here, not before." The man walked. Jack stood in the open doorway until the footsteps had faded. Then he stepped back, closed the door slow, and slid the bolt across with a thumb. "Doctor?" "Yes." "Thank you for the pistol." "Mr. Holloway, put it back, loaded." "Mr. Holloway, do you have any idea what you just—" "I've got some idea, sir." "Richard Dalton does not bluff." "Neither do I." The doctor opened his mouth, closed it, turned back toward the table where the baby lay. Sarah had not moved. Her hand was still on Lily's small head. Ethan was still leaning close, still whispering into his sister's ear, still pouring words that meant nothing and everything into a face the color of skim milk. And as Jack Holloway crossed the room back toward them, Lily Carter's chest lifted. Not shallow, not rattling, a full breath, the kind of breath a living child takes before she remembers what crying is. And then small and ragged and wet and beautiful a sound came out of her. Not a scream, not yet, but a sound. Sarah Carter's knees did go this time. She caught herself on the edge of the table with both hands, and she bent her head down, and she wept without making noise the way women weep when they have been holding it for too long to let it out all at once. Ethan's face did not change for a long moment. And then it broke. Just once. Just a little. Like a piece of hard ground cracking open under a first rain. Lily. Again, son. Lily. 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 The baby's small hand twitched. Her eyelids fluttered. Her mouth opened on nothing, and closed on nothing, and opened again, and the second sound that came out of her was louder than the first. Dr. Pell set his jaw hard. His eyes were wet. Mr. Holloway? Yes. She is going to live. Say it again, doctor. She is going to live. Not tonight, maybe. Not easy. But she is going to live. Jack let out a breath he seemed to have been holding since the road. Then we've got work to do. Work, sir. She is going to live, doctor, but the water is still poisoned. The land is still stolen. The death certificate still says natural causes, and there are still, by my count, at least 3 men in this town who figure today ends with me face down in a ditch. Mr. Holloway. Doctor? Yes. The house. Thomas Carter's house. Is it watched? Sarah lifted her head. Jack? Ma'am? There's something under the floor. I thought there might be. Thomas, before he got too sick to climb the ladder, he hid a box. He told me if anything ever happened to go get it. Yes. Have you been back? I have not been able to. Dalton's men have been on the porch since the day we buried him. How many? 2, sometimes 3. At night. Always. Jack Holloway looked down at the baby on the table. He looked at the boy whose fingernails were broken from a road he had walked alone. He looked at the woman whose husband had written something down in a book because he knew. He knew they were going to kill him, and he wanted somebody to be able to prove it after he was gone. Sarah. Yes. Tonight. Tonight what? Tonight I'm going to go get that box. Jack? Yes. They'll kill you. He looked at her a long moment, and when he spoke his voice was softer than it had been all afternoon. Ma'am, men have been trying to kill me for a long time. They haven't been in any particular hurry. I don't reckon tonight's the night they figure it out. Ethan's small voice cut in from the table. Sir. Son. I'm coming with you. No, you're not. Yes, sir, I am. Ethan. Sir, I know where the box is. Your mother knows where the box is. Yes, sir, but I'm the one that helped him hide it. Jack looked at Sarah. Sarah looked at Jack. The baby on the table made the smallest, most ordinary sound. The fussing sound of an infant who has just remembered that she is hungry, and Sarah let out a long, shaking breath and closed her eyes and nodded once. He's telling the truth, Jack. Thomas made him promise. He said one day a man was going to come who could help us, and when that man came, Ethan was the one who was supposed to know where to look. Jack was quiet for a long time. Then he crouched down slow until his eyes were level with the boys for the second time that day. Ethan Carter. Yes, sir. You've been carrying a lot. Yes, sir. You're about to carry a little more. Yes, sir. Can you do it? Yes, sir. You're sure? The boy's chin lifted. His gray eyes, steadier now than the hands of the doctor still working over his sister, met Jack's without blinking. Sir, I already asked 11 men. I got an answer on the 12th. I ain't about to quit now. And Jack Holloway, drifter, former lawman. A man who had spent 5 years making sure he did not stay long enough anywhere to be missed, laid one gloved hand on the boy's shoulder and held it there, and did not take it away for a long, long time. Night came down on the town, the way night always came down on guilty places, slow, quiet, and unwilling to be looked at. Jack stood at the doctor's back window and did not pull the curtain. Doctor? Yes. 2 men on the road, 1 at the corner. How can you tell? I've been counting cigarettes. 3 glows, same 3 spots for an hour. Dalton? Dalton. Mr. Holloway, please. I am begging you wait until morning. Federal surveyor comes through on the 1st of every month. Another 3 weeks and... In 3 weeks, doctor, that boy's mother is in a pine box and the baby's in the ground beside her. You don't know. I know. So do you. The doctor did not argue. Sarah sat by the table where Lily slept, one hand on the baby's small chest, feeling it rise, rise, rise. She had not stopped feeling it rise since the sound had come out of her daughter's mouth 2 hours ago. Ethan stood at her elbow, his coat buttoned wrong, his hat pulled low, his eyes on Jack. Sir? Son. I'm ready. You sure? Yes, sir. Sarah. Jack. 1 hour. If we are not back in 1 hour, you take the doctor's wagon. You go north. You don't stop until you hit Helena. You find a federal marshal. You tell him everything. Are we clear? We're clear. You have that paper I took. In my bodice. Good. That alone is enough to hang him if it reaches the right desk. Jack? Sarah. Come back. He did not answer that. He only tipped his hat just once, just enough, and nodded to the boy, and they went out the back door, into the alley, where no cigarette glowed. The Carter house sat on a rise at the east end of town. A 5-minute walk in daylight. A 20-minute walk the way Jack Holloway walked it with a 9-year-old boy whose boots made no sound because Jack had wrapped them in rags before they left. Ethan. Sir? Your papa ever teach you to move quiet? He taught me to move like a deer, sir. A deer knows where to put its feet before it puts them. Yes, sir. You know where to put yours? Yes, sir. Prove it. The boy ghosted ahead of him through the low brush behind the livery. Not a twig cracking, not a breath loud. And Jack, who had tracked men through 3 wars and 2 territories, found himself for the first time in a long time impressed. At the edge of the Carter property, Jack caught the boy's shoulder. Down, sir. Down. They dropped to the ground together. Jack's hand stayed on the boy's back. Ethan? Sir? How many men were on your porch when you left the house this morning? 2, sir. Look. The boy looked. The porch was empty. Ethan's breath went shallow. Sir. I see it. They're gone. No sun. They're inside. Inside. There's a lantern moving in the back window, low, floor level. Somebody's tearing up your floor. The boy made a small sound, not fear, something worse, something like a man hearing his own grave being dug. Sir, the box. Son, listen to me. Listen close. You told me your papa hid that box where nobody would think to look. Yes, sir. Where? Under the hearthstone, sir. Not the floorboards. Under the hearthstone. Jack's teeth showed for just a second. Not a smile, something else. Your papa was a smart man. Yes, sir. Whoever's in there tearing up the floor doesn't know that. No, sir. Who knows? Just me, sir. And Mama. And now you. Jack laid the boy flat against the ground. You stay here. Sir. Stay. Sir, if I... Ethan Carter. If I hear your voice, if I hear your boots, if I hear so much as your breath until I come back for you, I will leave you in the dirt and ride out of this town and you will never see me again. Do you understand? The boy's gray eyes went wide and wet. I understand. I am lying to you. I would never leave you. But you need to understand how serious this is. Yes, sir. Do not move. No, sir. Jack went up the slope toward the back of the house the way a man goes up toward something he does not want to find. His long coat made no sound. His pistol stayed holstered. In his left hand, low against his thigh, he carried the doctor's second revolver barrel down thumb on the hammer. The back door was already open. Jack stepped through it sideways, his left shoulder to the frame, his right eye on the lantern glow in the front room. The floorboards had been pulled up in 4 places. A crowbar lay across the hearth. A man knelt beside the fireplace with his back to the door. Not 2 men. 1. And the one when Jack's voice came low and even from the doorway did not jump. He only closed his eyes. Sheriff? Holloway? Put the crowbar down. I already did. Stand up. Can't Holloway. Why not? Because if I stand up, you're going to shoot me. and I would rather take it on my knees. Jack did not move. You know my name. I know your name, Holloway. I have known your name for 3 days. Dalton got a letter. Said a man matching your description had been asking after Thomas Carter in Billings last Tuesday. And you did not tell the mother. No. Why? Because Dalton would have had her killed before you got here. Silence. Jack crossed the room, lifted the crowbar with the toe of his boot, kicked it away into the dark. The sheriff did not turn around. Sheriff? Yes. Stand up. Slow. Hands open. The sheriff stood. He turned. He was older than Jack had figured, 50, maybe more. Gray mustache, tired eyes. A man who had been tired for a very long time. Holloway. Yes. I am going to tell you something. Go on. 3 years ago, my wife got sick. The kind of sick that takes a woman a piece at a time. Dr. Pell said it was the water. I thought he was a drunk fool. Dalton said it was a blessing that a childless couple should be grateful. He paid her medicine. He paid her funeral. He has paid every bill I have had for 3 years. And in return, I do what he tells me. Which tonight is what? Which tonight is to come into this house before you did tear up every board and find what Thomas Carter hid. And bring it to him. Yes. And what happens to the family? The sheriff's jaw worked. Once. Twice. The mother takes a fall down the steps of my jail before sunup. The boy runs and we do not find him. And the baby. The baby was never supposed to make it past noon, Holloway. You were not supposed to make it past noon either. Jack looked at him a long time. Why are you telling me this? Because I heard the baby cry, Holloway. What? 2 hours ago, at the doctor's. I was walking past the back fence. I heard a baby cry. I have not heard a baby cry in this town in 7 months. Sheriff, I buried 3 of them, Holloway. 3. And I signed the papers that said they died of natural causes because Dalton told me to, and because Dr. Pell told me to, and because I am a coward. Holloway, I am a coward and a sinner. And tonight, when I heard that baby cry, I sat down in the road and I wept like a child. His voice broke on the last word. Jack Holloway's hand, which had not moved from the grip of the second revolver, came up slow and slid the pistol into his belt. Sheriff, Holloway, I am not going to shoot you. You should. I am not going to shoot you, Sheriff, because there is a hearthstone in this room that is about to come up, and when it does, the 2 of us are going to walk back into town together. Do you understand me? The sheriff's eyes lifted. The hearthstone. The hearthstone. Thomas did not hide it under the floor. No, sir, he did not. The sheriff let out a breath that shook at the edges. That clever son of a gun. Help me lift it. They lifted it together. The stone was heavy, older than the house. Underneath, packed in sawdust and oilcloth, sat a metal box no bigger than a family Bible. Jack lifted it out. He set it on the hearth. He opened it. The first thing was a stack of receipts. 7 of them. Dates running from 2 years back to the week before Thomas Carter died. Everyone bore the signature of Richard Dalton himself and the words, paid in full. The sheriff swore softly. That alone hangs him, Sheriff. That alone. The second thing was 3 sealed glass bottles. Water, slightly cloudy. 1 marked Creek, 1 marked Well, 1 marked Dalton Private Stock. The sheriff made a strangled sound. Dalton Private, how in God's name did Thomas get a sample of Dalton's private well? Somebody on the inside. There is nobody on the inside. Dalton keeps that house locked like a bank. Then somebody inside the bank, Sheriff. The third thing was the journal. Leather. Cracked. Thumbed soft at the corners. Jack lifted it out. He held it a long moment. Then he handed it to the sheriff. Sheriff, you read it. Me. You. A man ought to know exactly what he has been party to before he decides what kind of man he is going to be tomorrow. The sheriff took the book in hands that had gone unsteady. He opened it. He turned past the first page. The second. The third. His eyes moved down a list written in a careful farmer's hand, and the color went out of his face. Holloway. Sheriff. There are 7 names in here. 7. 7 men Holloway. Dates, symptoms, dates of death. Every one of them a man Dalton wanted something from. Every one of them signed off by Dr. Pell as natural causes. 7. 7 Holloway, and I buried 5 of them myself. Jack took the book back. He did not open it. He closed his hand over the cover like a man closing a door on a room full of the dead. Sheriff. Yes. Read the last page. The sheriff read the last page, and then he sat down on the raised hearthstone like a man whose legs had forgotten how to be legs. Holloway. What does it say? It says, if Thomas did not live to see the federal marshal. Yes. It says the next man to help this town would be a stranger. A man with gray in his beard and blood on his hands and a reason to stay. It says that. Word for word, Holloway. Thomas wrote your description 11 weeks ago. Jack was quiet for a long beat. Sheriff. Yes. There is no such thing as prophecy. Your friend Thomas knew what he was looking for. He was looking for a man who had already lost everything, because only a man like that is not afraid of losing the rest. Are you that man, Holloway? I am that man. The sheriff lifted his eyes. Then, Holloway, I am that man tonight, too. Jack put the journal back into the box, the receipts, the bottles. He closed the lid. Sheriff? Holloway. Stand up. The sheriff stood. There is a boy in the brush behind the house. I need you to go tell him it is safe to come in, and I need you to tell him you are sorry. By name. Look him in the eye. Ethan Carter. Do you have that? I have that. Go. The sheriff went. Jack heard the low words through the open door. He did not listen. Whatever the boy said back to the sheriff belonged to the boy. A minute later, the two of them came back in together, the boy's hand tight in the older man's hand, the sheriff's hat off and held against his chest. Ethan looked at the open box on the hearth. He did it, didn't he, sir? Whose son? My papa. He did what he said he was going to do. Yes, son, he did. The boy's mouth moved once. No sound came out. Then he looked up. Sir, are we going to Mr. Dalton now? We are going to the town hall, son. The town hall's empty at night. Not tonight, it's not. The sheriff lifted his head. Holloway. Sheriff? How did you? Because I told Dr. Pell to ring the church bell at 9:30, which by my watch was 11 minutes ago. The sheriff's eyes went round. You rang the bell for a town meeting. I rang the bell for a town meeting. In the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. Holloway. Sheriff, if Dalton thinks you are still here tearing up this floor, he is at his supper. If he thinks the bell is afire, he is running toward the square. Either way, we get there first. With this. He hefted the box. The sheriff's face did something that had not been on it in 3 years. It smiled. Holloway. Sheriff, you are a dangerous kind of quiet. I have been told. They walked out the front door this time, straight down the steps. The boy between the two men. The box in Jack's left hand, the doctor's pistol tucked into Jack's belt. The sheriff's own badge, which he had unpinned on the hearth and repinned on his shirt, with a hand that had gone steady again, catching the last of the moon. Halfway down the lane, the boy's voice came small and shy. Sir. Son. My papa wrote about you. Yes, he did. He said you would stay. Did he say that, son? He said the man who stops for us will be a man who has been running a long time. And when he stops for us, he'll stop for good. Jack walked 3 more steps without answering. Sheriff? Yes, Holloway. How far to the town hall? 4 minutes at this pace. Then we best pick it up. They picked it up. The square was already filling. Every window on Main Street was lit. Men in nightshirts, women in shawls, children held up on hips. The bell was still ringing. Dr. Pell was still pulling the rope, his coat over his nightclothes, his face set, the way the face of a man who has finally chosen a side is set. And at the far end of the square, on the steps of the town hall, stood Richard Dalton. Black frock coat, silver watch chain, 3 men flanking him. A lawyer Jack had never seen before at his elbow with a leather case. Dalton's eyes found Jack across the crowd. They did not narrow. They widened. He had been expecting the body on a jail floor by morning. He had been expecting papers in his hand by dawn. He had not been expecting a stranger with a metal box, a 9-year-old boy with his chin up, and his own sheriff, his own paid-bought-owned sheriff, walking 3 steps behind them with his badge catching the lamplight, like a star, come back from a place it had no business leaving. Sheriff Briggs? Mr. Dalton? Is there a reason you are walking beside that man? There is, Mr. Dalton. And what is that reason? That reason, Mr. Dalton, is that I buried my wife 3 years ago and lied about why. And tonight I heard a baby cry for the first time since, and I remembered what kind of man I used to be before you bought the other one. The crowd went still. Dalton's jaw set. Sheriff, step up on these stairs, away from that stranger, now. No, Mr. Dalton. No. No. Jack Holloway climbed the first step of the town hall. He set the metal box down on the top step, right at Richard Dalton's polished boots. He opened the lid. And he turned slow so the whole square could see what was inside. Evening, folks. 100 faces looked back at him. My name is Jack Holloway. I am a stranger in this town. I stopped today because a boy asked me to. I did not want to stop. I have not wanted to stop anywhere in a long time. But I stopped. And I am here to tell you, all of you, exactly what this boy's father wrote down before he died. Exactly who paid for his dying. And exactly how many of your neighbors, your children, and your wives are in the ground tonight, because the men who were supposed to speak for you chose not to. He lifted the journal out of the box. He held it up so the moon caught the leather. Every name in this book, he said, is going to be read out loud, right now, tonight, and when we are done. He looked at Richard Dalton. He did not raise his voice. When we are done, sir, you are going to answer for every one of them. Richard Dalton did not answer. He did the thing a guilty man does when he has been caught in the light and thinks the dark is still close enough to step back into. He smiled. Mr. Holloway? Mr. Dalton. This is a handsome performance. It is not a performance, sir. No. No, sir. Then it must be a crime. Standing on the steps of a public building after sundown, disturbing the peace, agitating good people with stolen property. Stolen. Stolen, Mr. Holloway. That box belongs to the estate of Thomas Carter, which by the papers in my office has been assigned to me in settlement of debt. Jack did not look away. The paper in your office, sir, is a forgery. Prove it. I intend to. With what, Mr. Holloway? A book written by a dead farmer, water in a jar, receipts a child could have drawn with a pencil. With this, sir. Jack reached into his coat. He drew out the folded paper, the one he had lifted from the counter of the general store 7 hours ago, and he held it up in the lamplight where the whole square could see. This is the paper Mrs. Carter was asked to sign this morning. On this paper at the bottom is a signature that reads, Thomas Carter, dated 3 days after Thomas Carter was put in the ground. That is not dated, sir, in your hand. That is a forgery of a forgery, Mr. Holloway. Dr. Pell. The doctor's voice came from the bell rope at the side of the hall. Yes, Jack. You attended Thomas Carter's deathbed. I did. You signed his death certificate. I did. What was the date? March the 14th, Jack. I remember because it was my own brother's birthday. And the date on this paper, sir? Dr. Pell crossed the square in his nightshirt, took the paper from Jack's hand, held it up to the lamp. His voice carried across the silence. March the 17th. A murmur ran through the crowd like wind across a wheat field. Dalton's smile did not move. But something behind his eyes did. Dr. Pell is a sick man. Dr. Pell has been drinking again. Mr. Dalton. The doctor did not raise his voice. He only turned slow so his face was visible to every man and woman standing in the square. I have not had a drink in 11 years, Mr. Dalton. You know that because you have tried 3 times to put one in my hand. Somewhere at the back of the crowd, a woman said out loud, "Lord have mercy!" Dalton's jaw tightened. "Sheriff Briggs." "Yes, Mr. Dalton." "Arrest this man." "Which one, Mr. Dalton?" "The stranger." "On what charge, Mr. Dalton?" "Trespass, theft, incitement." "No." The word was soft. It was also the loudest word Sheriff Briggs had spoken in 3 years. Dalton's head snapped around. "What did you say to me?" "I said no, Mr. Dalton." "Sheriff Briggs, I said no. And before you tell me again about my wife's funeral bill, Mr. Dalton, I am going to tell this square who paid it and what I did for it. And when I am done, they can decide whether the badge on my chest belongs on the ground or stays where it is." Briggs. 7 months ago, a woman named Mary Lou Peterson came to my office. Her husband had just died. She said the water had killed him. I told her to go home and rest. Mr. Dalton that night came to my kitchen with an envelope. He did not tell me what was in it. He did not have to. It was thick. I took it. Silence. 4 months ago, a man named Eli Hoyt lost both his little girls in 1 week. He came to my office. He said the water had killed them. I told him to go home and rest. Mr. Dalton came to my kitchen. I took what he brought. A woman cried out short and sharp somewhere in the middle of the crowd. A man's hand closed on her shoulder. 6 weeks ago, a man named Thomas Carter died. His wife came to my office. She said her husband had written down the names of every man poisoned by that factory. I told her there was no such book. Mr. Dalton came to my kitchen. I took what he brought. The sheriff's voice did not shake now. "And tonight, Mr. Dalton, I broke into the Carter house on your orders. I was there to tear up the floor and find that book and bring it to you so you could burn it. Instead, Jack Holloway walked in behind me with a pistol in his belt and asked me whether I was a man or a dog." The sheriff unpinned his badge. He held it up. "I am telling you now, on my wife's soul, I am done being your dog." He pinned the badge back onto his shirt. The square did not breathe. Dalton's lawyer leaned toward his ear and whispered something. Dalton waved him off without looking. "Sheriff Briggs." "Yes, Mr. Dalton." "You have just confessed to accepting bribes in the commission of 8 felonies. You understand that?" "I do." "You understand that your confession destroys you?" "I do." "Then why in God's name—" "Because, Mr. Dalton, I heard a baby cry." Dalton's mouth opened, closed, opened. "A baby. Lily Carter, sir. Who you ordered dead before noon. Who is at this hour sleeping in Dr. Pell's back room breathing. Actually breathing, for the first time in a day and a night." He turned to the crowd. "Folks, I know what I am. I know what I did. I am not asking you for forgiveness. I am asking you for one thing and one thing only. I am asking you to listen to the stranger for 10 more minutes before you decide what kind of town you want to wake up in tomorrow." And he stepped down off the lower step of the town hall and walked to the side and stood beside Dr. Pell. 2 broken men, side by side. Heads up. Jack let the silence breathe for 3 long counts. Then he lifted the journal. "Folks, I am going to read 7 names." A man in the second row removed his hat. Another followed. Another. Within 10 heartbeats, every man in the square stood bareheaded. The first name. Jack opened the book. Henry Abernathy. Died November the 9th last year. Dr. Pell wrote natural causes. Thomas Carter wrote, and I am reading from the page. Henry come to me Monday. He said Mr. Dalton offered $400 for his south pasture. He said no. Tuesday, his cattle started dropping. Thursday, Henry started spitting blood. Sunday, he was gone. His widow sold the pasture the following week. A woman at the front of the crowd pressed both hands to her mouth. "Mrs. Abernathy, is that the pasture you sold in December?" She nodded. Her voice would not come. "Mrs. Abernathy, did Mr. Dalton pay you $400 for it?" 80. "Say that again, ma'am. Louder." $80, Mr. Holloway. I signed for 80. A growl went through the men on the east side of the square. A low growl, the kind of sound that does not come out of crowds often. Jack turned the page. Second name, Eli Hoyt. Lost his twin daughters in April. Buried them both on the same afternoon. Dr. Pell wrote natural causes. Thomas Carter wrote, Eli came to me crying. He said Mr. Dalton wanted the millwrights. He said no. A week later, the girls took sick. Eli signed the millwrights over on the day of their funeral. He said he could not stand to lose another thing. He said he was sorry. A man pushed to the front of the crowd. Tall, thin, hollow-eyed. Hoyt. Jack Holloway. My girls. Yes, sir. The man's voice broke. My girls. He killed my girls. Yes, sir. Eli Hoyt sat down in the dirt of the square. Just sat down. Put his face in his hands. And sobbed the way a grown man sobs when a thing he has been carrying for months finally cracks. The two women nearest to him knelt beside him without a word, one on each side. One of them was Mrs. Abernathy. Jack turned the page. Third name. Holloway. Dalton's voice. Sharp now. Not smooth anymore. Yes, sir. Stop reading. No, sir. Holloway. Third name. Samuel Peterson. Died in February. Thomas Carter wrote, Holloway, I will pay you. The square went still again. Jack lifted his head slowly. Say that again, Mr. Dalton. I will pay you, whatever you want. You are clearly a reasonable man. Name a number. Mr. Dalton? 10,000. Mr. Dalton. 20. Mr. Dalton. Stir. 50,000, Mr. Holloway. $50,000 in gold tonight, and you walk out of this town and never come back. For a moment, nobody moved. Jack looked down at the book in his hand. He looked at the boy standing 3 paces behind him, hat off, gray eyes steady. He looked at the sheriff. He looked at the doctor. He looked last at the woman who had just come out of the shadows at the edge of the square, carrying a baby wrapped in a clean blanket, Sarah Carter, who had walked the 3 blocks from Dr. Pell's house the moment she had heard the bell ring, because she had decided she was not going to sit in a back room while the truth came out of somebody else's mouth. Jack Holloway turned back to Richard Dalton. Mr. Dalton? Yes, Mr. Holloway. You just offered me $50,000 in front of 117 witnesses. Dalton's face went white. In front of your own sheriff. Holloway. In front of a doctor who will testify. That was a bribe, Mr. Dalton. Offered in public. Recorded in the memory of every man and woman in this square. That alone in front of a federal judge is 10 years in prison in the state of Montana. And that is before we get to the murders. Dalton's hand moved. Not toward his pocket. Toward the inside of his coat. Jack's own hand was already there. Don't. Mr. Holloway. Don't, Mr. Dalton. I am a patient man. I have not drawn a pistol in anger in 5 years. You are about 3 seconds away from changing that. Dalton's hand stopped. One of the 3 men flanking him, the toothpick man from the porch, took half a step forward. Sheriff Briggs stepped between them without drawing a weapon. Son, I've known your mother since she was 11 years old. Put the pistol down and go home to her. Do not make me tell her at breakfast that I shot you. The toothpick man looked at Dalton. Dalton did not look back. The toothpick man took the pistol out of his belt, slow 2 fingers, and laid it on the step. He backed up. He sat down. He put his head in his hands. The other 2 men followed. First one belt, then another. 3 pistols stacked on the top step of the town hall like kindling. Jack did not take his eyes off Dalton. Mr. Dalton? Mr. Holloway? The federal marshal in Helena has already been sent for. Dr. Pell's oldest boy rode out at sundown. He is 3 hours ahead of any rider you could send after him. By dawn the day after tomorrow, there will be a federal officer in this square. Mr. Holloway, you are not going to run, sir. Your coat is thin and your boots are soft, and you have not been on a horse in 15 years. You are going to sit down on those steps. Sheriff Briggs is going to sit beside you, and you are going to wait. Dalton's mouth opened. It closed. His lawyer at his elbow leaned in one more time and whispered. And this time, Dalton listened. And the lawyer stepped back from his client with the slow, careful movement of a man separating himself from a fire. He did not start, but does not want to be mistaken for. Richard Dalton sat down on the top step of the town hall. Sheriff Briggs sat down beside him. And it was over. Not finished. Not yet, but over. Jack Holloway let out the breath he had been holding since the general store that morning. He turned. He looked for Sarah. She was standing at the foot of the steps, Lily asleep against her shoulder, Ethan's hand in her free one, her eyes wet but open, her mouth steady. "Ma'am?" "Jack. It's done. I know. Is the baby?" "She ate, Jack, twice. She ate twice in the last hour." He nodded. He could not say anything for a moment. "Ma'am." "Yes." "Your husband?" "Yes. He was a good man." Her chin wobbled, just once. "He was the best man I ever knew, Jack Holloway, until tonight." He did not know what to say to that, so he did not say anything. He just lifted his hat off his head and held it against his chest and stood there on the steps of the town hall while the crowd around them began slowly to do the thing crowds do when they have just remembered they are a town again. Men went to Eli Hoyt, where he sat in the dirt, and lifted him up. Women went to Mrs. Abernathy and wrapped her in their arms. A boy, 9 years old, maybe 10. A boy. Ethan Carter had played ball with once before. All this started stepped out of the crowd and walked up to Ethan and without a word held out his hand. Ethan took it. And somewhere inside the crowd, Dr. Pell's wife. A woman Jack had not yet met. A woman who had spent the last 3 years watching her husband come home in the dark, with shoulders that would not straighten. Walked up to her husband, put both her arms around his neck, and laid her forehead against his chest. The way a woman lays her forehead against a door she has been locked out of and finally opened. The marshal came 2 mornings later, as Jack had said he would. He came with 2 deputies, a federal warrant, and a territorial water surveyor, who took one look at the 3 bottles from Thomas Carter's box and shook his head like a man reading a gravestone. By noon, Richard Dalton was in irons. By sundown, the factory had been padlocked. By the end of the week, the full record of 7 years of bribes, forgeries, and killings had been read into the territorial court at Helena. Sheriff Briggs walked in on his own feet and gave his confession in a voice that did not shake. Dr. Pell gave his. A dozen townspeople gave theirs. The court, by a quirk of new federal law passed only the winter before, had the authority to seize Dalton's assets immediately and hold them in trust for the families he had harmed. The pasture came back to the Abernathys. The millwrights came back to Eli Hoyt. 7 widows received compensation enough to live decently for the rest of their days. The Carter land, all of it, was returned to Sarah by federal decree, free and clear, with a small additional sum for the wrongful death of her husband. And one afternoon in late summer, 3 weeks after the last of the hearings, a cart pulled up to the Carter house carrying a new pump fresh pipe and 2 men from the Territorial Water Office who spent the better part of a day installing a clean well drawn from the far side of the ridge above the creek, above the factory, above everything Dalton had ever touched. That evening, Sarah Carter stood at her own sink and let the new water run through her hands for a long, long time. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Ethan stood beside her, a clean glass in each hand. "Mama." "Yes, baby." "Is it over?" She turned the tap off. She dried her hands on her apron. She looked down at her son, 9 years old. The broken fingernails grown back the hollows under his eyes, gone a little color in his cheeks, for the first time since spring, and she bent down and kissed the top of his head, the way she had not been able to in half a year. "Yes, Ethan, it's over. And Mr. Holloway," she straightened slowly. "What about him, baby? He's still here." "Yes." "Every night." "Yes." "On the porch." "Yes." "Mama." "Yes, Ethan." "Is he gonna stay?" Sarah Carter looked out her kitchen window through the late summer light to the figure on the porch rail. The tall man in the long coat who had stopped when 11 other men had ridden by. who had lifted a hearthstone in the dark, who had stood on the steps of the town hall with a book in his hand and faced down a man richer and more powerful than any one of them. And she did not for a long moment say anything, because she did not yet know the answer. And neither did he. The answer did not come all at once. It came the way most true things come to a man who has spent a long time running. Slowly, in pieces, in the small hours of mornings when nobody was watching. Jack Holloway slept in the barn the first 3 weeks. He told Sarah it was proper. She did not argue with him because she understood what he meant and what he did not mean, and because a woman who has just buried her husband is not in any hurry to explain to her neighbors why a stranger is sleeping under her roof. But every evening after supper, he came up to the porch, and he sat on the rail, and he drank 1 cup of coffee that she brought him without asking whether he wanted it, and he stayed until the lamp in the front room went out. Then he walked back to the barn. He did not speak much in those early weeks. Sarah did not press him. She had learned in the long, slow burying of Thomas that some men needed to be asked questions, and some men needed to be left alone with their own, and that the second kind, if you waited, eventually asked themselves. It was Ethan who wore the silence down. The boy had taken to shadowing Jack the way a colt shadows a lead mare. Morning chores, fence mending, the long walk out to the new well. Wherever Jack went, Ethan was 2 steps behind, hat pulled low, small hands stuffed into pockets that were too big for him because they had once belonged to his father. One evening in September, Jack was splitting kindling at the side of the house when the boy spoke up behind him. "Sir? Son, how long you figure on staying?" Jack did not turn around. He set another log. He split it. He set another. "Why do you ask Ethan?" "Mama don't ask, but she looks." "Looks where?" "At the road, sir, every morning, like she's checking to see if your horse is still here." Jack set the axe down slowly. He turned around. The boy was standing 4 feet behind him, chin up, eyes steady. "Ethan?" "Sir?" "Did your mama ask you to ask me that?" "No, sir." "You're sure?" "Sir, if mama wanted to ask you, she'd ask you. She don't need me." Jack looked at the boy a long moment. Then, for the first time in a long time, a small smile came to the edge of his mouth and stayed there. "No, she doesn't." "Sir." "Yes, son." "I asked you something." "You did." "Are you going to answer?" Jack picked the axe back up. He turned the log. He set it, but he did not swing. "Ethan, can I ask you something first?" "Yes, sir." "That day, on the road, when you threw yourself under my horse." "Yes, sir." "Why me?" The boy's forehead wrinkled. "Sir, you said 11 men rode past. You could have stopped any of them harder. You could have grabbed a rein. You could have yelled. You laid yourself down under my horse like you'd already made up your mind I was different. Why?" The boy was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was smaller than usual. "Sir, can I tell you the truth?" "Always. Papa told me what you'd look like." "He told you." "Before he died, sir. Not the way you'd tell a story. The way you'd tell a chore. He said one day I'd see a man riding through town who looked like he'd been tired for a long time. He said the man's eyes would not be mean, but they would be empty in a way that was worse. He said when I saw that man, I was supposed to stop him, whatever it took." Jack set the axe down again, slower this time. "Ethan?" "Yes, sir." "Your father had never met me." "No, sir." "Then how did he know?" "Sir, he used to say there's a kind of man who loses something so big he can't find his way back to normal living. He said those men either go bad or they go good. He said the ones who go good twice as hard as anybody else, because they got nothing left to lose and a whole lot to pay back. And he said, when this town needed saving, it wasn't going to be saved by a good man. It was going to be saved by a man who used to be bad, or used to be broken, or both." Jack did not speak. "Sir?" "Yes." "Are you that man?" Jack looked down at the axe in his hand. He looked up at the late sun. He looked last at the boy. "Ethan." "Yes, sir." "Let me tell you something I have not told anyone in 5 years." "Yes, sir." "I had a wife once." The boy's eyes did not move. "Her name was Rebecca, and I had a boy, about your age. His name was Samuel, and one day, a long time ago now, I was a lawman in a town not unlike this one. And there was a man in that town, not so different from Richard Dalton. And that man asked me to look the other way on something. And I did." "Sir, I looked the other way, Ethan, because he had money and I had a family, and I told myself it was just one time. And 2 weeks later that man's business caught my wife in the street by accident, and she died there, and my boy died beside her, and I have been riding ever since." The boy's chin did not wobble. "Sir?" "Yes." "Papa was right about you." "How?" "He said the man who stopped would be a man who had looked away once, and who would never look away again." Jack closed his eyes. Just for a second. Just long enough for something behind them to settle into a place it had not settled into in 5 years. "Son." "Sir." "I am going to answer your question now." "Yes, sir." "I do not know how long I am going to stay, but I know I am not going to leave." "Sir." "Do you understand the difference?" "Yes, sir." "Tell me." You're saying you don't know what happens next. But whatever it is, you're doing it here." Jack looked at the boy a long, long time. "Yes, Ethan, that is exactly what I am saying." The boy did something then that Jack had not seen him do since the morning at the general store. He smiled. A real smile. The kind of smile a 9-year-old boy is supposed to have on his face most of the time. "I'm going to go tell Mama." "Ethan." "Sir." "Let me tell your mama." "Yes, sir." "Tonight." "Yes, sir." The boy ran off to the house, and Jack stood in the yard with the axe in his hand and did not pick up another log for almost an hour. He told her that night on the porch. He did not make a speech of it. He had never been good at speeches when they mattered. He waited until she had brought the coffee, and she had set it on the rail, and she had turned to go back inside, and then he spoke her name. "Sarah." "Jack." "Sit down a minute." She sat. He did not look at her. He looked out at the road that ran past the house. The road he had first come up on a tired horse 6 weeks before, and he turned his hat slow in his hands. "Ma'am?" "Jack?" "You don't have to call me sir." "I wasn't going to." A small breath of a laugh came out of him before he could stop it. "Fair enough." "Jack." "Ma'am, Sarah, I have been sleeping in your barn for 23 nights. 24. 24. I've been counting. Have you?" "Yes." He turned the hat another half turn. "I want to tell you something, and I want to tell you plain, because you have been lied to by too many men by now. All right. I am not a young man. I am not a rich man. I am not even most days a good man. But I am a man who has decided he is done running. And when a man like that decides to stop, he has to stop somewhere. And if that somewhere is here—" "Jack, let me finish." "No." It was said the way a woman says no when she has been waiting a long time to say it. "Jack Holloway, I buried my husband in March. I did not think I would ever again hear a man tell me he wanted to stop somewhere. And I will be honest with you, I did not think when that day came that I would want him to. Sarah, I am not finished." "Yes, ma'am. But I will tell you what I have learned since you rode up to my door with my son walking beside your horse. I have learned that a man who stops is rarer than a man who stays. And I have learned that a good man and a stopped man are not always the same thing, but sometimes, Jack, they are." He looked at her. She looked back. "Jack." "Yes." "Come out of the barn." "Ma'am, I am not saying into my bed, Jack Holloway. Do not you put that on me tonight. I am saying into the front room. I am saying by the fire. I am saying the house is full of children now, and it ought to be full of people. I am saying—" Her voice caught for half a breath. "I am saying you have slept in enough barns." He did not answer for a long moment. Then slow he reached across the space between them, and he took her hand in his. Not the way a young man takes a girl's hand. The way a tired man takes the hand of a tired woman, because they have both been cold a long time, and their hands are the warmest things either of them has left. Sarah. Yes. I will come out of the barn tomorrow. Good. But I will sleep on the sofa. I know. For a long time. I know Jack. I do not want anybody in this town saying a single word about you that is not the truth. Jack. Yes. They're already saying you saved my life and my boy's life and my daughter's life. I do not think they're much interested in saying anything else. He laughed, a real laugh this time, short and soft and a little surprised at itself. Fair enough. They sat a long time on the porch. He did not let go of her hand. She did not ask him to. The winter came hard that year, the way winters come to Montana. Snow up to the eaves. Wind that did not stop for days. But the new well did not freeze, and the pantry was full because the Abernathys had sent 2 hogs, and Eli Hoyt had sent flour enough for a family twice their size, and every other week a wagon came up the lane with something in it that no one would accept payment for. The town had not forgotten. Lily grew plump and loud. By December she was rolling over. By January she was sitting up. By March she was pulling herself upright against the legs of Jack Holloway's chair and laughing a full belly laugh, the kind of laugh a baby has when she has never once in her short life been asked to be quiet. Ethan grew too, taller, straighter. The hollows under his eyes filled in and stayed filled in. He went back to school in October. He came home in May with a certificate that said he had read more books in his first year back than any other boy in his class. Jack framed it and hung it in the front room over the hearth, over the same hearth where the metal box had once been buried under a stone. And on a Sunday in late June, a little more than a year after Jack Holloway had first ridden up the road, and a boy had thrown himself under his horse. Jack and Sarah stood in front of the small white church at the end of Main Street, and the preacher asked her if she would take him, and she said she would, and he asked Jack if he would take her, and Jack's voice did not shake. Sheriff Briggs walked her down the aisle because her father was long dead and her brothers lived far away, and because she had asked him herself, and because he had wept when she asked and said yes before she was finished asking. Dr. Pell stood up as Jack's witness. Ethan carried the rings, both of them, on a small flat cushion his mother had sewn the week before, and he did not drop them, and he did not smile on the way up the aisle because he was taking the job seriously. But when his mother said, "I will," he grinned so wide his ears nearly met behind his head. Lily, 13 months old and walking, stood beside her mother in a white dress the Abernathy women had made for her. She held the hem of Sarah's dress in one small fist the whole ceremony. When the preacher said, "man and wife," she looked up at Jack and said, clear as a bell in a town that had once gone 7 months without hearing a baby make any sound at all, "Papa." She had been saying it for 2 months. He had never until that moment answered to it in public. He did now. He knelt down right there at the altar in front of the whole church, and he picked her up, and he held her, and he did not wipe his face, because there was no use pretending. And he looked across the top of her small warm head at the boy beside him, and said, "You too, son." And Ethan stepped in under his other arm, and Jack Holloway Drifter, former lawman, a man who had once lost everything and spent 5 years riding away from the loss of it, held his family for the first time in the sight of God and man both. Years later, when people in that town told the story, they would tell it in pieces. Some told the part about the boy under the horse. Some told the part about the journal and the hearthstone. Some told the part about the sheriff who unpinned his badge and pinned it back on. But every one of them, no matter which part they told, ended it the same way. They ended it with the 12th man. 11 men had ridden past a boy in the road. 1 had stopped. And because 1 man stopped, a baby lived. A mother kept her home. A town found its courage. A doctor found his spine. A sheriff found his soul. And a broken drifter found a porch to sit on at the end of every day and a hand to hold on it. The boy on the road saved 2 lives that morning, his sister's, and the life of the stranger who stopped for her. Because the truth, the one Thomas Carter wrote in his worry book and never lived to see proved is this: a town is not saved by the men who ride through it. A town is saved by the ones who stop. And in the end, the bravest thing any man, woman, or child can do in this hard and hurrying world is exactly what a 9-year-old boy named Ethan Carter did on a dusty Montana road one summer morning: throw themselves down in the path of the next rider and refuse with every small bone in their body to be passed by. Someone will stop. Someone always stops. And when they do, everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes.